Hey gang. Now there are many forms of entertainment. Some people like television, some people like to play video games, some people like to go on the internet and watch videos or read articles. My favorite form of entertainment is this kind. Yes, I absolutely adore books. I am a bookworm in every sense of the word, and I've been collecting books for quite a long time now. I've been collecting books and reading books far before I became a video game player. And one of the series that I particularly enjoyed, and that didn't get much love even back in the day, is The Rescuers, from Marjorie Sharp. Now, Marjorie Sharp was best known for her adult novels, Clooney Brown and Rhododendron Pie, among others. However, in 1959, she decided to try something new and write a children's story. What she wrote was this. The Rescuers is the first of 9 books featuring these characters. Now, the main character of all these books, except for the last 2, is Miss Bianca, a white mouse who lives in the embassy. It's not specified exactly where. Bernard, known as Bernard the Brave by many of his peers, he is basically the strong leading figure, a rough and tough, a bit rough around the edges, but very reliable mouse. And this character over here called Nils, a Norwegian mouse. Now, Nils is one of my favorite characters of all time, favorite literary characters, because he represents all the best of the Norwegian race. He's tough, he's strong, he's often quick-witted and sometimes foul-mouthed, but he has a very big heart. And he always has his galoshes on. Now, there's no saying in Norway, Norwegians die with their boots on. And he pretty much represents all of that. Now, the first few books were illustrated by Garth Williams, which, let me tell you, is my favorite illustrator of all time. Garth Williams' style is simply delectable. Now, he has a strange combination of complex and simple. Notice how his lines are not all that difficult, not all that complex, yet the final touches, the final result, is a nice little shaded image that really defies explanation. It's simply mesmerizing to look at his illustrations. Now, The Rescuers begins in the Mouse Prisoners Aid Society, which is a society made completely by mice. Now, their main function is to entertain and to make the lives of prisoners much nicer, because prisoners are lonely in their cells and at least they can have mice to play with. However, this particular meeting is very different because they're not going to help a prisoner or entertain a prisoner. They're actually going to rescue a prisoner, which is unheard of from the previous Mouse Prisoners Aid Society missions. Now, the main characters, Bernard and Miss Bianca, immediately form a bond with each other that will be explored on the subsequent books. And they decide to take the mission and rescue this prisoner. Now, the prisoner is being held in a prison called the Black Castle, which is an impregnable prison from which nobody has ever escaped. Now, long story short, they go through a lot of adventures and eventually encounter the prisoner. Whether they rescue him or not, well, I'm not going to give the ending away. Now, The Rescuers has been released in several editions. This is one of the older releases, but there are older and there are fortunately newer editions as well. Now, the other books in this collection include Miss Bianca. Now, Miss Bianca and the Rescuers, these 2 books together, were the basis for the Disney animated film, although they did change several details to make it a little more accessible. These books are labeled as children's books, but they're actually, well, there's some details that might not be suitable for children nowadays. Followed by The Turret, very nice illustration by Garth Williams. Miss Bianca and the Salt Mines, this is one of my personal favorites. Miss Bianca and the Orient, personally I think this is a low point in the series, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Miss Bianca and the Antarctic. And now this is the second book in which Nils appears. It's a very entertaining scene over there. Unfortunately, this is a used copy and it has a coffee mug stain there, but no big deal. Miss Bianca and the Bridesmaid. Now this is one of the creepiest stories I have ever read. And if any of you have read this story, you know what I mean. Talking dolls are always creepy. Now, these illustrations from this particular book were made by Erik Blevgrad. And let me just say, he's okay, but he's definitely not as good as Garth Williams. Nobody will ever come close to Garth Williams. He is simply a perfect illustrator. Nevertheless, it's a very good book. Now, the two final books in this series center around Bernard. Now, this one is Bernard the Brave, the first one. And Marjorie Sharp wanted to give a little bit of a twist. Instead of focusing on Miss Bianca, this book focuses on Bernard and on his adventure to save an heiress from a couple of corrupted people who are making her lose her inheritance so that they can take it for themselves. Now, the two final books were illustrated by Leslie Morrell, and Leslie Morrell's style is very rich. She uses a lot of lines, a lot of traces. It's really a very particular style, sometimes creepy. The final book is this hardcover Bernard into Battle, also illustrated by Morrell. And this is the final book in this series. Unfortunately, Marjorie Sharp passed away before completing the next book in the series. There were rumors that she was writing a 10th book, and she was working on the second draft, and unfortunately she passed away. But this is actually a very good conclusion to a series, which is very, very nice. Now, there are a few strange details about the world of the rescuers. For one thing, inanimated objects and stuffed creatures sometimes talk. And some humans can understand mice and even have, let's say, relationships with them beyond simply being pets. Sometimes they have commercial relations. Sometimes they ask for advice. It's actually a very particular book, and if you can get into this series, get into the weird sort of setting of it, it's very enjoyable. So, in conclusion, The Rescuers is terribly underrated. You should give it a try if you like, let's say, quirky books. Books that don't follow the norm. Books that sort of create a world of their own in which things happen that for them is normal, that for us would be completely insane. Now you can get these in newer paperback editions for very cheap. I think the latest edition is 2008 or 2007, and you shouldn't have to pay more than $4 or $5 for each book. It's very accessible. I'm not sure if they are published in digital form because they're not all that famous and not all that, let's say, appreciated to publish in digital form on Kindle or whatever, but give them a try. They're really, really good books. So, glad to have shared that with all of you, and if there are other bookworms out there that might like to recommend me a few books, just give me a shout. Signing off.